Kidow stood in the middle of the terminal, his hands gripping a suitcase handle that seemed to dwarf his reach. The floor was a sea of rushing feet, and he navigated the current with focus. He pulled, but the luggage wheel caught on a hidden seam in the carpet. He tugged harder. With a sharp, metallic sound, the zipper failed. A cascade of neon-colored socks and crinkling bags of catnip snacks erupted across the polished tile, skidding into the path of commuters. The crowd halted. Kidow froze, his eyes widening until they were nearly the size of dinner plates. His tail puffed out instantly, transforming from a sleek line into a stiff, bottle brush shape. He looked at the mess, then up at the sea of faces watching him. He spotted a security guard approaching with a stern expression. Kidow did not run. Instead, he tilted his head, offered a shy, awkward wave, and let out a soft, nervous chirrup. The tension in the air shifted as the guard paused, looking down at the scattered catnip, and shook his head with a faint, bemused smirk. The cobblestone streets of the village hummed with activity. Kidow trotted through the market square, snapping photos of pigeons and stacks of pretzels. A yellow bottle sat on a nearby cafe table. He tilted his head, mistaking the contents for a familiar cheese sauce. With a confident squeeze, he deposited a large dollop onto his paw and took a long, curious lick. The sharp, burning tang of mustard struck his tongue like a needle. He gasped, dropping the bottle, and shook his paw frantically in the air to cool the sting. He stumbled backward, looking for relief, and spotted a thick, frayed rope hanging from the exterior of the stone church. He reached up, grabbed the heavy cord, and threw his entire weight into a swing. A deep, thunderous chime erupted from the tower, vibrating through his bones and echoing across the square. Kidow scrambled away, his ears flattened against the sudden, massive sound. Locals looked up from their stalls, blinking in confusion at the source of the tolling. Kidow ducked behind a wooden crate, heart racing, and watched the crowd with wide, blinking eyes, waiting for the commotion to settle. The market air smelled of yeast and salt. Kidow found his target, a giant golden pretzel hanging from a stall. He paid for it, wrapping his arms around the doughy circle as if it were a shield. His victory was short-lived. A sudden, frantic beating of wings signaled the arrival of a hungry flock. Pigeons descended in a blur of gray feathers, pecking at the dough. Kidow waddled away, his ears flattened, weaving through the crowded aisle to protect his prize. He surged forward, but a flower cart blocked his path. He swerved hard, his momentum carrying him into a small bistro table. It tipped with a clatter of metal, forcing him to scramble behind a nearby wooden crate. He stopped there, lungs burning, heart hammering against his ribs. He looked down, expecting the weight of the bread in his arms. His hands were empty. A few feet away, a single pigeon stood in the dust, methodically swallowing the last salty crumb. Kidow watched the bird, his chest rising and falling in a long, dramatic sigh. He remained hunched in the shadows of the market stall, staring at the empty patch of ground where his treasure had been, his whiskers drooping in total, feline sorrow. Kidow pushed himself up from the dust, shaking off the weight of his earlier loss. He needed a new mission. He found it leaning against a wall, a tiny, silver-framed bicycle. He climbed onto the seat, his feet barely reaching the pedals. With a tentative push, he began to roll. The wheels wobbled violently. His legs spun in a frantic, circular blur as he picked up speed, heading toward the main road. The rhythm of his pedaling was erratic, and he drifted without warning into a lane reserved for serious, high-speed cyclists. The sudden presence of a weaving, oversized feline caught them off guard. Kidow panicked, his fingers hammering a rhythmic, desperate alarm on the bicycle bell. It rang out in sharp, metallic bursts as he swerved to avoid a collision. He attempted a wave to signal his distress, but the movement threw his balance completely off. The bicycle tilted, skidded across the stones, and slid gracefully into a stack of dry, golden hay. Kidow tumbled forward, landing softly in the stalks. He stood up, unhurt, and carefully brushed the dry fragments from his fur. High above, an old cat watched from a windowsill. tapping a single paw against the ledge in a slow, rhythmic beat of approval. Inside the warm, wood-paneled restaurant, Kidow climbed into a chair, determined to dine like a local. He pointed at the menu with a paw, but the waiter arrived with a towering platter of sausages and cream puffs. Kidow reached for his sparkling water, but the cap popped off with a violent hiss. A fountain of bubbles sprayed upward, catching a loose napkin in the air. The napkin drifted, settled onto a pastry, and slid rapidly toward the edge of the table. The waiter spun with lightning reflexes, catching the plate in a perfect, wide-arched flourish. The restaurant erupted in spontaneous applause. Kidow looked around, blinked, and joined in, clapping his paws with genuine delight. The evening ended on a high note. He stepped out into the glowing streets, his bag heavy with souvenirs from the day. A soft, light snow began to drift down from the dark sky, catching the amber light of the street lamps as it fell. Kidow walked at a steady pace, his fur dusted with white flakes, feeling the quiet rhythm of the town around him. The trip had been full of unexpected turns, but as he headed toward the hotel, he felt a sense of complete, warm triumph.